Well, the White House announcing new measures today in its crackdown on Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, including rolling back several Obama-era policies on Cuba. National Security Advisor John Bolton announced today a new cap on remittances to Cuba. People in the U.S. can now only send $1,000 per person per quarter. The administration also announcing today new policy allowing lawsuits against foreign firms operating on properties Cuba seized from Americans after the 1959 revolution, as well as new restrictions on travel and even on where Americans can visit on the island. NBC6 political reporter Steve Litz is live right now with how these changes will affect people planning to travel to the island. Steve?
And hi, Jackie. Ambassador Bolton came here to the Biltmore to address Brigade 2506. You may remember that was a group of Cuban exiles who tried to overthrow the Castro regime around the time of the revolution. Well, Ambassador Bolton announced that travel will be limited. Travel to Cuba will be limited. And to the air and cruise lines that go to Cuba now, Miami-Dade's mayor offers this.
Well, you know, they were doing really well before they started going there. I'm sure they're going to continue to do really well after they stop.
Travel to Cuba now becoming more limited, with the Trump administration dialing back President Obama's efforts to thaw relations with Cuba. National Security Advisor John Bolton announcing at the Biltmore Hotel, travel will now be limited to family visits, breaking from the previous policy of people-to-people visit. Airlines and cruise lines have been taking people back and forth to Cuba for several years now. Businesses which are now expected to be impacted with the implementation of new policies.
The United States, under Ambassador Bolton, is making a very, very definitive statement that we are going to stop funding and supporting these communist dictatorships that are not only enslaving millions of people in their own country, but they are the architects of the enslavement of millions of people in other countries as well in this hemisphere. And that's a national security threat to our way of life of freedom and democracy. Our way of life of freedom and democracy.
American Airlines releasing a statement just a short time ago saying this: "We are reviewing today's announcement to understand any potential impact. We will continue to comply with federal law and work with the administration to update our policies and procedures regarding travel to Cuba as necessary." American Airlines, one of the largest carriers out of Miami International Airport, with 10 daily flights from Miami to Cuba. Live outside the Biltmore in Coral Gables, I'm Steve Litz, NBC6 News.
Steve, thanks. And earlier today, I sat down with Ambassador Bolton to talk about the new changes, the significance of the announcement made today on the 58th anniversary of the Bay of Pigs invasion. The sanctions announced not only on Cuba, but also Venezuela and Nicaragua.
Thank you very much. And
National Security Advisor John Bolton back in Miami to announce a big shift in the administration's Cuba policy, intensifying its crackdown and essentially reversing the Obama-era position.
The policy of the Cuban government has only gotten worse, we think, since Obama gave diplomatic recognition to the Castro government. So we're going to try and correct some of the mistakes we think were made during the Obama presidency.
The biggest change, allowing U.S. citizens who had property seized in Cuba after Castro's revolution to sue businesses.
All the people who have benefited from using the stolen property have gotten almost for free a very substantial economic resource, and they may well fight to sustain it. On the other hand, if you're in the public service business, in tourism, or a number of other fields, it's not really good to be saying, I want to continue to benefit from somebody else's stolen property.
And the administration fully expects there to be pushback.
I think they'll see that their companies are going to have to make a business judgment what course they want to take. I don't think it will affect our relations. There's some talk that the European Union may bring a case in the World Trade Organization. I'll just tell them right now it's a waste of their time. This is not a trade dispute. It's nothing the WTO has jurisdiction over.
And Venezuela will be feeling the heat as well.
Going after the Central Bank of Venezuela, we've already had some sanctions on them. There'll be more now because of the critical role that the bank plays in propping the Maduro regime up. I mean, systematically what's happened here for the past 20 years is that the Chavez-Maduro regimes have just lived off the economic lifeblood of the country. And we want to make sure that there are not additional ways for them to get financial connections that prop up the regime.
And the third country affected by what the ambassador calls the troika of tyranny is Nicaragua, where sanctions were put in place there on the Ortegas.
Hi, I'm Shelly. Thank you for checking out our NBC6 South Florida YouTube channel. You want more videos like the kind you just watched? Click right here on the subscribe button below. Get the latest stories, interviews, caught on camera, and more. Digital exclusives as well, all for you. Subscribe now.